I wasn't supposed to still be here. Not in this house, not in this marriage, not sitting at this table at 2 a.m, waiting for a phone call that might not come. I had a plan, a clean exit. I had packed a bag once, a small one, just enough for a few nights. But I never left. Because Daniel didn't know what I knew. And what I knew was going to kill him if he found out the wrong way. So I lied. For 7 years, I lied to the man I loved more than anything on earth. I lied about the money. I lied about the calls. I lied about where I went on Tuesday afternoons and why I always paid cash at the grocery store and why I never, not once, let him see our bank statements. And here's the part nobody prepares you for. When he finally found out, every single lie, all of it, he didn't scream. He didn't leave. He got down on his knees in our kitchen and he thanked me. This is the story of those 7 years.
We met in 2015. He was the loudest person at a party I didn't even want to go to. Daniel Maddox, 30 years old, big laugh, bigger debts, though I didn't know that part yet. He was magnetic. He made you feel like the only person in any room. And when he loved you, you felt it in your bones. We got married 2 years later. Small ceremony. His mother, Ruth, sat in the front row with her arms crossed the whole time. I thought she hated me. Turns out she was just terrified of what she knew about her son. The first sign came 3 months into our marriage. A voicemail. A man's voice. Calm. Professional. Like he was reading from a script. He said Daniel owed $4,200, that a second notice had already been sent, that next steps were being considered. I deleted it before Daniel came home. I don't know why I did that. Instinct, maybe? Or something deeper. Some part of me already knew the shape of what I was walking into. I sat with it for a week. Then I called the number back myself. The man on the phone was named Marcus Dell. He told me Daniel had been playing cards, private games, high stakes. Said it started as a stress release, work pressure, family pressure, and then it became something else. The $4,200 was just the surface, he said. There was more. There was a lot more. He said it in the same tone you'd use to discuss the weather. I asked him what Daniel had promised. He paused, just long enough to let me know he was enjoying the call, and said, "He promised to bring you in as a co-signer. He said you'd understand." I hung up. I sat in my car for 40 minutes. I did the math on a napkin. I called my own bank. I cried exactly once, just one long, ugly minute. And then I stopped. Then I called Marcus back. I told him I would handle it. Directly. No Daniel, no co-signer paperwork, just me, a payment plan, and his discretion. He laughed. He said he'd been hoping I'd say that. That was the first payment. The first lie.
Ruth found out by accident. It was year 2. I had been late on a car payment. Ours, the joint one, because I had quietly redirected the money to cover Daniel's latest shortfall. He didn't notice. He never noticed. But Ruth had a habit of stopping by the house on Thursdays, and she saw the notice on the kitchen counter before I could hide it. She didn't ask me about it right away. She made coffee. She sat down. She waited until the silence was uncomfortable enough that I had to break it. Then she said, "How long?" I could have lied to her too. I almost did. But something in her face stopped me. Not softness. Ruth didn't do soft. It was recognition. She already knew the shape of this story because she had lived a version of it herself 30 years before with a man who was a lot like his son. I told her the truth. All of it. She didn't react the way I expected. She didn't cry or rage or tell me I was a fool. She picked up her coffee cup, took a slow sip, and said, "Then don't stop. Not yet. But the day you start to disappear, the day you feel yourself going, you come to me first. Promise me that." I promised. I kept that one. By year 4, I had paid back $63,000. $63,000. I took on freelance accounting work, evenings, weekends. I sold things we didn't need. I found every financial margin in our life and quietly compressed it. Daniel thought we were just careful with money. "You're the responsible one," he'd say, like it was a compliment. It killed me every time. Marcus and I had developed a working relationship by then. Transactional, controlled. I paid, he kept quiet. He even referred to me, once offhand, almost admiringly, as the most efficient person I've ever done business with. I should have known that men like Marcus don't admire people, they study them. In year 4, he came back with something new. Daniel had made contact again, without my knowledge. He hadn't placed bets, not yet, but he'd reached out, testing the water. Marcus told me not because he was doing me a favor. He told me because he wanted to see what I'd do. And I realized then that I was not managing a problem. I was managing a man who had not yet decided whether to get better. That was the worst night of the 7 years. Worse than the first call. Worse than any bill. Because for the first time, I genuinely didn't know if any of it was worth it. I almost told him that night. Came so close I could taste the words. He was sitting on the edge of our bed at 6 a.m. He hadn't slept. I could tell by the way his shoulders sat. Too rigid, too careful. He said, "I almost did something stupid last week." I said, "I know." He looked at me. Just looked. And I could see it in his face. The question forming, the want to ask, the terror of what the answer might be. He didn't ask. Instead, he said, "I'm going to get help. Real help. I called a therapist yesterday. I need you to know I'm trying." I sat beside him. I took his hand. I said, "I know you are." That was the 5th year. He started therapy. I continued the payments. I continued the silence. But something had shifted. A hinge in the story, turning slowly towards something I hadn't let myself imagine. Maybe we were going to survive this. And then Marcus called. Marcus had receipts. Not metaphorically, literal documentation. Every payment I had ever made, dates, amounts, wire records, years of it. He said he was thinking of reaching out to Daniel directly. Just to check in, he said. Just to let him know how hard his wife has been working. I asked him what he wanted. He told me. It wasn't money this time. He wanted Daniel back at the table. Just once. Just one big game. He'd been building something. A private tournament. Serious players. And Daniel Maddox's name still carried weight in certain circles. I said no. He said he'd send the records by the end of the week. I sat with it for 3 days. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I went to Ruth's house on a Tuesday, and I sat at her kitchen table, and I finally told her what I'd been keeping back. All of it. Marcus, the documentation, the threat. Ruth was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You need to tell Daniel first, before Marcus does. You need to tell him everything, and you need to do it tonight." "He'll leave," I said. "Maybe," she said. "Or maybe he'll finally understand what he had."
I told him on a Wednesday. I laid out everything on the dining room table, the payment logs, the first voicemail I'd saved. I'd saved it all along, I don't know why. The receipts, the timeline. I didn't narrate, I just pointed. He read it all in silence. 14 minutes. I counted. When he looked up, his face was something I'd never seen before. Not anger, something beyond anger. Something that looked like grief and shame and disbelief all pressing against the same wall at the same time. He said, "You paid this. You paid all of this." Yes. Without telling me. Yes. He stood up and walked to the window. He stood there with his back to me for so long I thought maybe he was done. Maybe that was it. Maybe the silence was the answer. Then he said, "Why didn't you just leave?" And I said the only true thing I had left. Because you weren't finished yet, and I knew who you were going to be when you got there.
Daniel went to see Marcus the next morning. He didn't tell me he was going. Ruth called me to say she'd seen him leave early, jaw set, that walk he had when he wasn't going to negotiate. I don't know everything that was said in that room. Daniel never gave me the full transcript. What he told me was this. He walked in, laid his own copy of the payment records on Marcus's desk, and said that if a single document was shared with anyone, his employer, his family, anyone, Daniel would ensure Marcus's private games were reported to every relevant authority. He had names, he had dates. He'd spent the night building his own file. Marcus, apparently, had not expected Daniel to know anything. That was the end of Marcus Dell. Daniel came home at noon. He sat down across from me at the kitchen table, same table where I'd started this story, same light, same quiet house. He said, "It's over. He won't come near us." I didn't ask how. I believed him. And then the man I had protected for 7 years did something I was not prepared for.
He got down on his knees, right there in the kitchen, on the tile floor, and he said, "I knew. Not everything, but enough. I chose not to look because I was a coward and because you made it possible to be one. And I'm sorry. I'm more sorry than I know how to say." I didn't speak. He said, "You saved my life. You saved my career. You saved my mother's ability to look at her son without flinching. You did all of that, and you never asked me for anything. You never even let me say thank you." He looked up at me. "Thank you, Claire. I know that's not enough, but I need to say it out loud at least once. Thank you." I cried for a long time after that. Not the ugly kind, the kind that comes when something you've been holding finally gets to be set down. Ruth came over that evening. She sat at our kitchen table and drank coffee and didn't say much. At one point, she reached across and squeezed my hand. That was all. It was enough. That was 8 months ago. Daniel is still in therapy. He'll probably always be in therapy, which is fine. The best people usually are. We paid off the last of it in February, just the two of us, at the kitchen table again, closing a laptop after a final transfer. No ceremony. We just looked at each other for a moment and then ordered pizza. I've thought a lot about why I did it the way I did it, why I didn't tell him, why I chose the weight of the secret over the uncertainty of his reaction. The honest answer is, I wasn't sure he'd choose himself, and I needed him to get to the point where he could. I needed him to choose to get better before anyone was watching. And he did. He got there on his own, which means it was real. There's one more thing. Last month, I found a note in my coat pocket, the one I wear to run errands. I hadn't worn it in a while. It was in Daniel's handwriting, short, no date. It said, "I found the bag you packed, the small one, in the top shelf of the closet. I've known about it for 3 years. Thank you for unpacking it." I don't know when he put that note in my pocket. I don't know how long he's been carrying that. But it turns out we were both keeping secrets. His was just quieter.